Well, hello and welcome to episode 5 of Surfing the Portal, the Sunday evening chat with Paul and Mindy that we've decided to do to try to continue the interest that we've had on all of our on our portal, Pinecone Utopia portal so far. So we're going to start that. I want to remind you that there's still plenty of room left in the chat room. Maybe somebody locked the door to the chat room. Anyway, we're welcoming anybody that wants to join us in the chat room. We usually have a few chatting back and forth there. But anyway, friends of mine watched episode 3 and 4, and they gave me some feedback. Things they said was that before each episode, I really need to go over why we're doing this and why we're doing this every Sunday and why we've decided to do the portal. So I'll do that every time. By the way, how it'll usually roll out is I'm going to go over a little bit about why we're here, and then what we're doing, what we're trying to accomplish, and why we call it Surfing the Portal. Going to go over some additions to the website she put on today and this week, and they're very interesting. So we'll talk about those. And last week, I got into a little bit about duality world and why this struggle looks so strange and how we can maybe look around it. I see absolutely is on my chat room. He did get locked out. No one's there. Okay, well, we'll just continue on with what we're doing. Anyway, I got involved with some targeted individuals that I call selected individuals, and we started presenting a weekly forum, and they wanted it to be called the Techno Crime Fighters Forum, and it's a really upbeat title, real positive, not anything about victimization. Even though they are all TIs, and I call them selected individuals. And what we started to do is we started to talk about how we can combat the perps, what are we going to do about it, and then I guess about 6 months into working this thing and really getting involved with helping TIs, Brian, too, came out with an interview. Now, Brian, too, is a person who claims to have been involved in the management of these gang stalking energy weapon programs. And he had some insight about what was really going on. And at the end of it, he talked about some things that selected individuals were doing that seemed to mitigate the effects or cause the effects to sometimes stop. And listening to his list of those, I was inspired to go back. Now, I have a degree in consciousness studies. And it's a degree in psychology, but mostly about consciousness studies. So I wanted to go back and look at some of the things that I learned about going through a survey of different Eastern and Western spiritual practices and see how they lined up with Brian Two's things that he did. Now, things that he did or he was commenting on were things like multitasking, listening to music, things like that. But once we started talking about it, selected individuals would write me and tell me, oh, here's what I do, and it really helps me. So I decided to put up a website. Now, it's actually up there only to be a resource for an open source investigation into how these types of things might help mitigate the effects of the targeting. Also, I should say that it would be really great if enough of these things mitigated their gang stalking. Wouldn't it be nice if they would give up after a while and start leaving some of us alone, some of the target individuals alone, and might really have an effect on on the PERPS program, the hive mind. Anyway, so what we've been doing is we have this website, Mindy will show you in a minute. And it's got techniques, which are techniques used by targeted individuals, selected individuals, that they say works. And in a section, and you can comment on them. And you can, usually the selected individuals have given us references. So if you decided you wanted to use that technique or try that technique, you could go to these references. Sometimes they're YouTube, sometimes they're a website, and actually learn how to do it and try it yourself. See how it works, because that would be the best data. And then we have a bunch of resources. Now, these resources are things that I learned about down through the years. Mindy and I have learned about. Some of them we've used. And it's just a bunch of ideas that you might try. And then, so anyway, that's the main idea of the podcast that we do every Sunday, is just to keep interest going, just to keep people coming, have something that they can share, to know that, we're doing this kind of work. Stay with us. We're going to have some amazing results. At some point, I would expect we're going to try to birth a hypothesis. A hypothesis is what we think from looking at these things that worked and looking at the target individuals and the type of targeting they're going through. What seems to work? So we're going to try to do hypothesis with that, and then who knows where that'll lead. So anyway, there's still some room in the chat room if you'd like to sign on. So I'm going to let Mindy take over and talk about things that came into the box and were posted on the website this week.
Okay, and just one other thing before I do that. Another reason why we originally thought to put this website up was because we have so many people writing to us through email that want to interact, that want to talk to us personally, tell their story, share things with us. And we wanted to have an opportunity where we could actually talk with people. So through the chat room, either writing in things that you'd like to discuss with us, or you can put your if you need a Gmail address to do this. Yeah. But if you type your Gmail address into the chat room, we can send an invitation and you can come on and
talk to us.
We can actually have a discussion.
Live. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was also another reason why we wanted to.
Yeah, there's a couple people that are usually in the chat room that I really wouldn't mind having on in the discussion, because they seem, they're always optimistic and they're always on target and they seem to, really contribute. So I wouldn't mind.
You said on target.
Yeah, yeah, they are.
Well, yes, they're very.
We should have had some canned laughter. We could have turned loose on that.
Well, that would have been
because we said something funny, and if we'd have had. Okay, well, anyway, you're
Hey, Brian came on. Thanks.
Hi, Brian.
For coming tonight, Brian.
Hi.
So where were we?
Mindy was going to show us the things that she posted this week.
All right, let me stop. Let me share that screen. You keep talking for a minute while I get it up here.
Okay. This is really nice to be able to share this. I shared it on episode 2 or something, but it didn't come off. It actually didn't share. So now I have my technologist back here.
And we'll see if it actually does share. So yeah. Okay, so I can pull it up and do it from here, right?
Okay, looks like it.
But you need to be able to see the screen there.
Yeah,
there it is. All right, great. And I'm just going to move it over so you can still see the chat room.
Okay.
So let's see what's new this week. Oh, if we go to the research page.
Yeah, new categories.
Oh, that's right.
Start with this.
Well, the original portal had the research techniques and discussion on it. And we were getting so many really wonderful communications from people that just didn't seem to fit. So we added a couple of new things. One is the shielding tab here, so that you can look through and people are writing in with things that are working for them for shielding. And just scroll down.
Hi,
and
Travis.
You'll see some really cool things written in here. I'm going to try to put the newest things at the top now, but be sure and catch it all before staying on top of
Transducers
it.
and energy weapons anecdote. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And this came in as an email, actually, from Karen Stewart.
Great topic. Hi.
And Brian is here tonight in the chat room, I see. Sent this, simple and easy defense from the heart attack weapon. This is really awesome because he goes into a lot of detail and makes a video. And what else do we have? So that's shielding.
A new category.
That's a new category. Shielding, check that out.
Now that I know that is not going to be comprehensive because that's what we did. We should post a YouTube video because we did a video on shielding. Remember?
That's a really great idea. Oh, and remember that this is still a work that is in progress, so I'm still developing it. For example, there's very little right now on the techniques page, but given enough time, we hope to add a lot of really great content on there that teaches different techniques. So if any of you have suggestions for that, please send them in because I think this is one of the most important resources on here, and it really needs to be developed. So right now we've got breathing techniques for focus and relief from suffering. That's a teaching by Thich Nhat Hanh. And ingestion of monatomic elements is a cure by a process called biological transmutation. That's really fascinating, so check that out. But we'll be building on that. This seems like I did 3, but I'm only noticing
general
2.
discussion.
Yeah, we put this tab up, general discussion from the community, because I didn't quite know what to do with these, and it's such great information that people are writing to us and have agreed to let us share with everyone, because this, really is set up as an open source investigation. So it's happening with all of us taking part. And this just came in today from a person, Emard, who used to work for the TSA and tells a wonderful story about it. I don't know if I should go into reading it or we could skip down here to the main reason. He says he's writing. I was getting hit hard from all directions as I was hearing private, propped, and jet engine planes all over. Must have been 3 or 4 flybys between noon and 3. I know this because from the obvious sound and this app I use called Flight Aware. It tells in real time of flights and detailed plane info that are in your vicinity. One plane in particular caught my attention. A Raytheon Premier 1 was the name of this plane, and it was 8,000 feet on top of his house, just slowly moving, almost hovering. And he asked that we look into it because he's not aware of Raytheon being in the flight transportation industry. So if anybody knows, let us know.
Raytheon's one of the big, bad military contractors like Lockheed Martin.
Mm-hmm. So he says he knows they're related with the whole targeting program through the various devices they make, specifically enhanced cameras that penetrate through walls. It could have also been a disinfo tactic where they manipulated the app, but I really doubt it because the plane disappeared from the map on the app about a minute later. I've screenshots, and I think I have a video screenshot as well. I also have an email address with Proton Mail. I'm not sure if that email is really encrypted or another way for the intelligence agencies to snoop on potential whistleblowers and truth seekers. So he goes on to say that his first video he saw from Pinecone Utopia was an interview you did with Eric Karlstrom on gang stalking and electronic harassment. That was really a good
he was great on
interview.
that.
Anyway, after that, I just want to mention Ortain Devian. Ortain joins us a lot in the chat rooms and has written so much incredible information in a lot of different forms. And be sure and read this. And he gives a lot of different links as he ferrets through the ideas that he's presenting.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Travis Mon says that a lot of the supposed passengers on the 911 aircraft worked for Raytheon. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What else?
Do we have new techniques?
Oh yeah, let me go back to, and no, I have new research.
Oh, new research.
Yeah,
all right.
Okay, let's see. So if you haven't been here for a week or so, you can see that it went from about 2 or 3 things to 12. So there's a lot of new things on here. The last 2 were this love deeply. Is that still up here? There it is. Love deeply and have as much fun as possible.
It was interesting that this whole notion of don't let them interfere with your life, have as much fun, came from the first time I heard it was Millicent Black. And then, sure enough, about a month later, I was interviewing Renee Rolay. Mm-hmm. Same thing, almost word for word. So I've heard that from a number of TIs. So I'm not surprised that we got it on here.
Right. And look, it's from Audra.
Oh, it's from Audra.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Audra. I hope you hear this. Audra was the real inspiration for this website and this investigation. It was interesting. She said, I'm a target. I've been a target for a long time. And I have a way that I can do that they stop and desist. So really great. So I called her and we chatted. And so what's your technique, Audrey? She said, well, I love my perps. And I thought, oh, this is really crazy. You know, it's the Jesus solution. I love them. You know, you can't have a separation, duality if you love them. So she was doing that. And I thought, well, theoretically, it's got to work. But now I'm going to go back to Techno Crime Fighters Forum and I'm going to say, well, one of the solutions that came up was love your perps. You know, these are the people that are kicking them around, making their lives miserable, making their lives painful, destroying their bodies. How could that work? Well, oddly enough, we hear it over and over again. And so, Audra, I'm grateful to you for being the first one to bring it into my life, and maybe you can come on the Surfing the Portal one day and talk about it.
Mm-hmm. That would be great.
I'll talk more about the love thing at the end. I have more stuff I want to read to you. Go ahead.
All right, so where shall I go from here?
Okay, what else did you?
Oh yes, this was another one. Get back to it. Humor and sarcasm and healing frequencies. That came in from Ortain Devian. And Ortain gives us a lot of information and a bunch of different links that we could go to. For example, this was one. I think I pulled it up already. Frequency disruptor for targeted individuals. And I'm going to play just 2 seconds of it.
Okay. What is the purpose of this? This
is to disrupt electronic harassment. And let's see if we can go back and read what he actually says about it.
Okay. This is a video probably from YouTube.
Okay, so he says, it's worth noting this technology is also used in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Deep Thought mentions masers, which is a weaker form of lasers as the delivery system. Dr. Fred Bell briefly alluded to this in his interview. He says, I noticed when I was most heavily under attack a hypersensitivity to sound. At times I would wear earplugs to muffle it. I began to use white noise rain signals to muffle it as well. This seemed to help a lot. I still do. It seems to break up FHSS signals. These YouTube videos seem to imply the same. Targeted individuals scatter frequency, and this one, targeted individuals frequency disruptor, stop electronic harassment. So these are listed here, and you can go yourself and look at them. And I was curious, so I thought maybe just a few seconds, or will we get a copyright strike?
Just play it.
Well,
it doesn't. That's just what it is. I
mean, that is just what it is. Yeah. So I can't actually imagine having that on in the background. I don't know. It'd be interesting to know if just that sound playing alone, or if you could play music on another channel and kind of just have that as a background frequency.
If anybody's watching this and you try to experiment with this, I would love to find out if these things work. You know, the whole thing is about energy and vibration. I mean, this whole puppet show, the whole duality world is everything about that. Mm-hmm. So just keep in mind that it's all about your vibration, your energy, and something like this certainly could disrupt it. We went to the Monroe Institute one year, Mindy and I, and they were offering courses that could allow you to develop skills that would allow you to be out of the body experiences. It was started by a guy named Bob Monroe, who was a radio TV executive, I don't know, I'm thinking 30s, 40s. And he accidentally popped out of his body. And subsequently, he went to doctors. They told him he was crazy. And he kept trying to prove that he wasn't crazy. And he had quite a little bit of resources. He was a rich guy. He was an executive. And so he put together laboratories to try to study what he was going through. And then from that grew the Monroe Institute, which I think has subsequently been linked up to the CIA. But anyway, we weren't aware of that. And they use binaural beats. I think that's some kind of syncopated beats from one side to the other.
Hemisync
technology to try to get you. But I think there's a lot to that. And I think that since they're bringing energy weapons to us, we really need to
learn how to work with energy.
Yeah, we need to learn how to work with energy. Travis said his last name was Monroe. Might be the reason you're targeted. Oh, it could be anything, Travis. I've heard of the most strange reasons. Anyway, where were we? Humor and sarcasm. Yeah, that does change your vibration. There was, now this is several years ago. It might have even been in the 90s, but there was research done on laughing and health. And it was a positive correlation, especially if you were to take part in a belly laugh every week. You know those laughs where you just start and then you just lose it?
The ones where you wet yourself.
Well, yeah.
Where you fall off your chair.
Yeah, you just once a week had incredible health benefits. Anyway.
Well, you can tell. I mean, if you laugh really hard, it completely changes your whole disposition and your perspective and your frame of mind. So I think humor is invaluable.
Right. Now, how we can actually use that, You know,
Yeah,
we're
laughing
going to
in
have to
real
find
laughter,
out.
not sinister perp laughter. Yeah, none of this clown laughter, sinister stuff.
I have things. Actually, we shared this on Techno Crime Fighters one day. We were talking about having something in the back of your mind that when you flash on it, you always laugh. Ours are basically lines from Mel Brooks movies, or I was on Steam it the other night, and there was a Finnish comedy skit, and it's one of those things that is just so stupid, it's so funny. I mean, it's so stupid you can't imagine someone doing it, so that makes it funny, or something like that. Now I just flash on that and I laugh. I think you should be loaded. You know, just like if you had a gun and you were loaded with bullets, you should be loaded with one or two things in your mind that just
Could totally make you laugh.
when you go there, you can just laugh. I think that'd be great.
And then one of the things that we do for kind of medicine, like when we're really bummed out, is we watch funny movies over and over again that we know just really make us laugh.
Yeah. So anyway, I really think that's important. Is there any other things that you want to share with our enthusiastic group? Hi, Jeannie. Hi, Jeannie.
Let me see. Okay, I did that. Talked about general discussion, research. I think that's everything. Unless anyone has any questions, or you can think of anything.
No, I was just reading Jeannie's comment, and the crazy neighbor across the street put up an antenna for broadband and for citizen band radio. It all works to harm. Yeah, we know it does. But it's almost funny. Look at what they're doing. I mean, look at all the time and effort they're doing for madness. Just really, it's crazy. Last week, I started talking a little bit about duality world, and the reason I wanted to do that is because I kind of want to work on a technique or an idea that I have that I think that human beings, as a human being, as an individual entity, you're much better if you have an open mind. And the way to get an open mind is to wrap your mind around concepts, especially concepts that could actually give you a greater understanding or a wider understanding of what's going on. So I read so much during my education and past my whole midlife in spiritual bookstores and crazy stuff and this religion and that religion, that I kind of have a backlog of ideas that I can throw out that might help us all. So the one I was talking about last week was duality world, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that again this week. Now, the basic concept is we seem to be in an experience where it's left against right, black against white. That's the black and white Masonic floor. It's all us against them, bad against good, and on and on and on. And when you group everybody in the good, well, half the goods will say the other goods aren't good, and it'll break you again and back into duality world. So there's just no way to get out of this duality world concept. And the reason that we call this surfing the portal, we call this research project the portal, is because I think it'll be really effective if we can use it to go from duality world, which is the matrix that we're kind of trapped in, through some of these techniques and go into a world of non-duality where we can relax. I don't know, did that seem logical?
Mm-hmm. It did to me.
Okay, well, anyway, so we're trapped in duality world, and everybody who's really spelunked down into deep crevices on this subject comes to the point of how can we get out of duality world? What can we do to bring whatever created this down so that we can stop fighting ourselves, stop breaking ourselves into pieces, and on and on and on. So some of the earliest were, well, you've got the Muslim idea, the Islam idea, that you can have peace, which is Islam, peace, if you could eliminate the opposition. And that idea is one way that I could conceive of him thinking that we're going to get out of duality world because we're not going to allow dissenting opinions. And I think we talked about the Sebastian Sevi in 1666, the father of the synagogue of Satan. To get out of duality world, he reasoned in one of his texts, now this could be the Talmud, or in one of the texts, reasoned that God would come back when either everybody was good or everybody was bad. And Sebastian Sevi, the guy who started the synagogue of Satan, decided that there's way too much temptation in the world for everybody to be good. So what he would do is create a culture, a religion, where of course he's the Messiah, where everybody would be bad. And so all the deepest of the corruption is bubbling out of the synagogue of Satan, which turned on synagogue of Satan morphs into a religion started by Jacob Frank, and Jacob Frank called it the Frankists. I think it was the Frankists. Mm-hmm. And that religion contacted Adam Weishaupt and Amstead Rothschild, and they started the Illuminati, which is the whole purpose of that satanic side, is to pull everybody into that side, seduce everybody into that side, so that they think that'll evoke God to coming back. And I mean, it could work. How the hell do I know? But the interesting thing is, to do that, you have to do it through incredibly low vibrational energy. You have to do it through evil, debauchery, and baseness. The other idea that came out of Jesus's teachings is love everybody. And as crazy as that sounds, that works. If you're non-judgmental and you love people, you're going to beat the system. You're going to beat duality world, but you're going to end up in a very high vibration. In other words, duality world didn't defeat you. Duality world, you learned your lesson and you learned how to get out of duality world. So that's why I wanted to focus a lot on duality world, because it's really coming up on our faces strongly right now because of all the black-white issues in the U.S., the Muslims in the Western Europe, the puppet show conflict that they're trying to do between Trump and the deep state and Trump and North Korea. I mean, it's all nonsense, but it's the duality world. They want you to be focused in duality world, so focused down in duality world that you can't even think of anything else. We spent 3 days this week watching Hurricane Irma. And then last night I happened to hear an incredible little video by a friend of mine, Jamie Lee, on a plain truth.info. And he talked about what's really happening. You know, all the images we have of Irma were NASA satellite images. And if you're down the rabbit hole as far as I am, and I think many people who are listening to this are, you know that NASA is nothing but It's nothing but a propaganda arm. So who knows what was really going on. But anyway, it's another example of this duality stuff. We're be afraid, be very afraid, be low vibrational. And anyway, go ahead.
Well, I want to just add that to create conflict so that you can watch how people interact with each other, you have them choose a side. You have them form an opinion. Remember those assessment centers we used to write? People had to start by forming an opinion, because then once you have an opinion, you have to defend it.
Right.
So anyone who doesn't share your opinion now in conflict with you.
Right.
So that keeps you in duality world. I mean, that's why Islam wants everyone to have the same opinion they do.
Right.
So there'll be peace.
So anyway, I think that one component in getting out of duality world is being able to visualize outside of duality world. I mean, if all you know is duality world, we were born into it. I mean, born into it, crying and fighting the parents and being forced. I mean, it's been duality, duality, duality. But there are ways to think outside of that. And there's one ancient philosopher that would talk about times when humanity wasn't as immersed in duality worlds as it has been since the advent of the Abrahamic religions. Before that time, there was duality and there was evil, but it wasn't as polarized. It wasn't as pulling itself apart like this. It wasn't as intensified. It's like if we were going through a program, it gets more and more intense as we get deeper and deeper. It seems to be hollering, wake up, wake up, wake up. Well, anyway, this philosopher Lao Tzu was from a time when they had this ancient wisdom, and they could talk about things outside of duality world. And I'm going to read to you from the Tao Te Ching. It's written by Lao Tzu. And we talked about this a little bit last week. We touched on it. And what's outside of duality world? If you can get your head, think of duality world as like a little petri dish. And we're coming outside of duality world, and we're kind of looking back at duality world. What are we actually in? Well, according to Lao Tzu, we're in a thing called the Tao. And it's spelled T-A-O, not D-O-W, like the Dow Jones. And the Tao is everything that exists. And you think it's really hard to get around something that doesn't have an opposite. When you see something that doesn't have an opposite, you are out of duality world by definition. So let me read this first paragraph, and let me see if it gives you a little bit more vivid picture of where we're going. It says, the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. And I think what they're trying to get to us through that is that there's nothing outside of the Tao. It's named, but even in the naming it means unnamed. It's like everything. And if it can be named, it's not the Tao. Let's go down to the second paragraph. The unnameable is the eternally real. Naming is the origin of all particular things. Now, how did we get to duality world? Well, it started by naming. Even in, I think, the Christian Bible, they talk about the God or something speaking, naming things. Was basically, that's how he created, he named. So naming is the origin of all particular things, and it certainly is the origin of duality world. Now it talks about how you can see it a little bit in terms of your point of focus. It goes, free from desire, you realize the mystery. Caught in desire, you see only the manifestations. So I think this talks about duality world and outside a duality world. If you're free from desire, in other words, if you're not taking sides in duality world, if you're not advocating that you make a lot of money, or you're not, if you don't care, then you can see into the mystery of how things are put together. But the next sentence goes, caught in desire, you see only the manifestations. Oh, I can see how they're dumbing down the social justice warriors. I can see how they're deceiving the blah, 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 you know, deceiving the masses to vote this way or that way. And you get caught in that desire, you really get, oh, we were following Hurricane Irma this week. Boy, caught in desire. Oh man, what's going to happen? Okay, anyway, let me go on to another paragraph. You might get through the first page today. Yet mystery and manifestations arrive from the same source. This source is called darkness. I think it's interesting that the darkest, the deepest source in all this Tao literature, Lao Tzu literature, is darkness. And what we're going to be opposing here is Lucifer, the light giver, coming down to give
all
us.
this time you thought you were going to the light.
Yeah, think again. And to emphasize the kind of the vastness of the source of the Tao. Darkness within darkness, the gateway to all understanding. And I think this points to probably many things, but the one that comes to mind is how an open mind is so much more able to grow, able to learn, able to move forward. It's just such a wonderful thing to keep your mind empty, keep it hollow. The only reason a bowl can work is
suspend your opinions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be, you know, in an acceptance of what is, as opposed to desiring what it could be or should be.
Right.
But just allowing what is to exist.
Right. Let me just do one more paragraph and then we'll stop for tonight. This paragraph talks about when you name things, you get involved with them. And when you get involved with them, we're going out of mystery and we're going into manifestations. So here we go. When people see some things as beautiful, other things become ugly. When people see some things as good, other things become bad. This is how duality world defies itself. You have the Christian Satan and Jesus Christ. Satan, the whole idea, the concept of Satan, the word is adversary. So without the concept of Jesus Christ, there's no Satan. So they create one another. And I was talking about a phenomenon, I think last week, about how when I don't know how you buy music today. I haven't bought music in a long time, but they used to sell it in albums, 8 tracks, tapes.
Mm-hmm.
And you listen through the, it talks about, or I'm talking about, when you go through your album, first time through, it's really great. It's a new album. And then you pick one you like best. And then you go through the album and you're kind of waiting for the one you like best. And then there's, after the next couple times through, you think, oh, well, this one I really don't even appreciate. I could just skip through that. So you end up, just because your mind is kind of judgmental.
Yeah.
You end up sorting into good and bad, and then you don't value them all
You end up
the same way,
choosing.
so you start
Yeah.
choosing. Okay, well, it looks like we've lost about everybody on the chat room today. So maybe possibly the word Lucifer, great topic. I'm glad you stuck through the bitter end of it here.
Well, you might have insulted several people. Who knows? There's always that opportunity.
Right. You know, when you talk now, everything is so deeply polarized that, you know, you say things that you don't even know are offensive to people, and they could be offensive. I was talking to a Christian friend of mine, and I said something. He said, well, that concept is New Age.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I had no idea. I don't think it's New Age. I think it's valid. It's just, you know, we label things that are good and label
Mm-hmm.
things that are bad. And
yeah, it's almost
that's how
as if every word has an inner voice response that says yes, this, no, that. You know, and so if you get, you know, if you get too many no's, then you just shut down and you're no longer open
right.
to whatever comes next, because your judging mind has
Right.
already made the decision for you without really hearing it out.
Okay, well, thank you guys. Thanks, Brian. Great topic, and some of the others that stuck through here. I think it's
ask great topic. What was misleading?
What was misleading? Great topic. Oh, anyway, so we were signing off.
I guess we were signing
Yeah,
off.
we were trying to sign off. I want to do this every week, and I'm going to continue to do it as long as I can, just because I want to keep interest in the portal, because I think this is going to be a wonderful resource. It's just keeping it alive.
Okay, that's what was misleading.
What?
That it said only 2 people, but there were 4.
Oh, 4. We're packing them in. We're packing them in tonight.
It's a small party, but any party is a good party.
That's right.
So
That's
thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next Sunday. Hope you'll come back and bring some friends.
That's right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.